Rick was thrown during a fight, fearing for his life. Instead of helping him, his mentors appeared, praising his progress and saying he was ready for the E-rank adventurer exams. Despite the praise, Rick needed medical attention. Unlike most adventurers who started young, Rick was determined to take the exam at 32. At the exam registration desk, the receptionist recognized Rick from 2 years ago when he quit his job to become an adventurer. She asked about his time away and Rick explained he was training. When a drunk man harassed the receptionist, Rick knocked him out quickly. Though she apologized, Rick questioned why the guild served alcohol, remembering his time as a former receptionist. After receiving his exam number, he stepped outside to greet a maid named Rionette, expressing gratitude while distracted by her figure. The other adventurers stared at the handprint on the drunk's armor. 2 men recognized the drunk as Donald, an A-rank adventurer wanted for assault. This made the receptionist realize Rick needed more qualified for the E-rank exams. During the physical exam, the staff were surprised that Rick was taking the test at 32. The candidates measured their mana by touching a crystal ball. Most scored impressively, but Rick earned an F when his barely lit up. As others mocked him, the orb shattered when he left. The candidates took turns hitting a special slime bag to measure their strength. Rick remembered his mentor's feat of destroying a golden slime bag, which motivated him to train by punching 50,000 times daily. When it was Rick's turn, the examiner questioned his age and suggested he quit to avoid embarrassment over a low mana score. Feeling judged, Rick thought about giving up, but remembered his painful training and decided to try. He punched the bag, which exploded through the wall, shocking everyone. A young candidate vowed to outperform Rick, but watched in disbelief as Rick withstood a 4th order spell. The examiner believed Rick wasn't trying hard enough, noting he used only 1st order spells. When Rick admitted he didn't know others, the examiner was shocked. Minutes later, Sylvester arrived and learned about Rick's exploits. Rick confidently took the written part of the exam, believing he got 100%. Fried soon approached, upset that Rick had outperformed him. When Angelica arrives, she confronts Rick for ruining Fried's day. Angelica threw her glove at Rick, accidentally challenging him to a duel. Not knowing its importance, Rick picked it up, declaring his intent to fight. Angelica set the penalty. The loser had to serve the winner for life. Confident in her strength, Angelica charged, but Rick found her surprisingly slow and easily dodged her strike. After several failed attempts, Rick intercepted her with a punch, creating a massive hole in the ground. When she unexpectedly surrendered, Rick learned he had won, and that she must serve him for life due to her penalty. Rick headed back to check his exam results, anxious about the arrival of his mentors. Rick and Rionette returned to the exam center and learned that glowing blue tickets meant they passed to the next stage. Worried about failing, Rick appreciated Rionette's reassurance, joking that he would marry her if he were younger. However, her fierce side emerged when she threatened to triple his training if he didn't pass. Suddenly, Rick's car glowed, showing he had passed. As they left, a foul smell surrounded them. A wealthy man named Raster Diermuit approached Rionette and introduced himself as the eldest son of the Diermuit family. Rick realized Raster wanted to pursue Rionette. When Rick tried to introduce himself, Raster ignored him and professed his love for Rionette, asking her to be his second wife. Angered, Rick said Rionette was his girlfriend. Raster laughed at Rick's F-rank exam card, but was shocked to reveal that he passed at 14 and was now an A-rank adventurer here as an instructor. He invited Rionette to dinner, but she declined, saying the only man she would go with was Rick. Infuriated by Rionette's rejection, Raster vowed to make Rick suffer if he supervised his exam. After Raster stormed off, Rick hoped to avoid him. When Rionette clung to him, he jumped back in embarrassment and apologized for calling her his girlfriend. Meanwhile, Raster fumed over losing Rionette to what he saw as a middle-aged man. Fried and Angelica complained about being humiliated during the exam. As mock battles approached, Rick felt nervous. Rionette urged him to hold back, but he resisted, wanting to prove himself against stronger opponents. They met Lynx, who would supervise Rick's exam. Lynx found Rick's determination inspiring, having reached B rank after 20 years, and looked forward to testing him. However, after Rick and Lynx parted ways, they learned Lynx had fallen ill, and Raster would replace him. Panicking, Rick feared Raster's grudge. Other examinees dreaded facing Raster, known for targeting F-rank adventurers. Outside, Raster knocked out an examinee, and Rick worried he couldn't handle him, but Rionette encouraged him to believe in himself. Meanwhile, a cloaked boy offered Rick free fortune-telling. As Rick prepared to sit, Rionette warned him about a magic circle on the chair, but the boy was teleported away. Fried was pleased to have tricked Rick. Rionette, furious, demanded to know where Rick was. Rick found himself by the river, confronted by elite guards ordered to beat him, likely by Raster's command. He accused them of stalling him, but the leader explained it was a coordinated attack, leaving Rick feeling outmatched. Suddenly, Rick's senior party members arrived and he lied, claiming the guards were helping him. When one guard threatened Alysseret, Broston crushed the attacker's hand, promising to heal it. Mizette then intervened with a super fire barrel rifle, incapacitating the guards. Overwhelmed by the presence of S-rank adventurers, the elite guard leader quickly retreated. Rick focused on his exam, fueled by anger, after finding Lynx beaten by Raster for expressing his dream. Rick now wanted to confront Raster. Adolf explained the 4 cores of power: strength, dexterity, magic capacity, and magic control. He revealed he could gauge a person's power by their appearance. After scanning a weak examinee, Raster quickly took him out. In contrast, Raster's high mana capacity strained Adolf's eyes, causing him to go blind when he looked at Rick. Rick's former co-worker, Elisa, introduced herself to Rionette in the stands and expressed excitement about being at Rick's party. Rionette invited Elisa to join them, and she agreed. She was surprised to see Broston, an orc. Mizette invited her to sit beside him, but she declined, knowing he would harass her. Mizette asked about the girl behind Rionette who introduced Elisa. Mizette offered her a seat, but Rionette protected her from Mizette's intentions. As Rick stepped into the arena, Soen asked Rionette how he would perform. She confidently replied he would pass, but Elisa warned that Raster, an A-rank adventurer, used excessive force against E-rank adventurers. Broston reassured her that Rick would be fine. As the fight began, Angelica and a Hurt Free cheered for Raster. Raster, determined, asked Rick why he became an adventurer. Rick dismissed Raster's shallow reasons. Raster fired a level 1 ice spell, missing on purpose to mock Rick. Following Rionette's advice, Rick observed. Raster then cast a level 3 fire spell, hitting Rick directly. Elisa worried, but Rick remained unharmed. Broston reassured Elisa that Rick could withstand such attacks. He explained that mana capacity must be trained early, and since Rick became an adventurer at 30, his was low. Broston built Rick's strength with intense training, including running with weights while chased by snakes. Rick had learned well and possessed S-rank power, though he didn't realize it due to Broston's gaslighting. As Raster prepared another spell, he insulted Rick and Lynx, unleashing all his elemental attacks. Believing Rick must be injured, he was horrified to find Rick unscathed. Annoyed, Raster decided to finish him off with his bare hands. He cast a strengthening spell, but Rick countered with a punch, knocking Raster back. Raster dismissed Rick's counter as luck and prepared a complete incantation spell. Despite its power, Rick blocked it with one hand and mocked Raster's execution. Raster's confidence faltered as he tried one last attack, but Rick overwhelmed him, forcing Raster to use Iron Body defense magic. Realizing Rick was stronger than average E-ranks, Raster claimed it was luck, but Rick knew his strength was genuine. When Raster asked how Rick became strong, Rick shared his experience of defeating a dragon and the intense training that followed. Raster, annoyed, ignored Rick's advice to master a single technique. Rick expressed hope for Raster's future. After the E-rank exams, Rick's friends celebrated, confident he would pass. When he did, he stayed calm, preoccupied with his thoughts. Rick recalled a childhood book about a hero who fought the monster Kaiser Alsapiet for the Akashic Records, a battle he ultimately lost. Inspired by this tale, Rick dreamed of becoming an adventurer, but his mother disapproved, urging him to choose a safer career. His father insisted he find a real job. After a checkup, Rick's doctor congratulated him on having an innate skill like the legendary hero Yamato, but warned it might take time to manifest. Although excited, Rick soon grappled with self-doubt, considering a regular job instead, much to his parents' delight. For years, Rick worked as a receptionist, watching adventurers live the dream he longed for. Although he enjoyed moments with friends and family, he became increasingly jaded. One day he stumbled upon an old storybook about Yamato, now just a fairy tale. At work, Rick assisted Elisa, a new hire, with paperwork, warning her about rising monster activity. Rick felt jealous when his friend announced he had become a B-rank adventurer. After drinking late into the night, Rick reflected on his stagnant career after 14 years. As he pondered his potential as an adventurer, he heard chaos outside. To his shock, a mid-rank troll was attacking the town. Normally he would flee, but seeing a woman in danger compelled him to leap before her, bracing for impact. Before anything happened, Rionette arrived and swiftly defeated the troll. She thanked him for his bravery and revealed her S-rank badge, leaving Rick in awe since it was his first encounter with an S-rank adventurer. Rick asked Rionette if he could still fulfill his childhood dream at 30. She believed he had potential, but warned him of the challenges he would face developing mana reserves as he aged. Although he expected her answer, it still stung, leading him to resolve to abandon his dreams. He jokingly invited her to dinner, and she surprisingly agreed. Feeling uplifted, Rick worked harder, showing no jealousy when Zaid boasted about becoming a B-rank adventurer. On his way to meet Rionette, he heard screams from a monster attack and rushed to find her. When he arrived, Rionette was struggling, haunted by a flashback of her loved ones' deaths. As danger loomed, wound, Rick realized he couldn't defend her, but Zaid arrived to save them. He learned of an emergency quest and was urged to get Rionette to safety while they handled the rest. Despite his doubts, Rick's inner fire pushed him to face the approaching dragon, throwing a rock to rally others. Provoked, the dragon unleashed fire, and Zaid protected everyone. After the attack, Rick approached the dragon, awakening his dormant skill and revealing the magic within him. He gaited confidence and ultimately defeated the dragon, fulfilling his long-lost dream. Afterward, he woke up in the hospital where Rionette invited him to join her S-rank party, believing in his potential. Rick had passed his E-rank exam and could finally call himself an adventurer. After Rick's exam results, he visited Lynx in the hospital. Lynx congratulated him and asked about drinks. Although Rick was happy, he felt uneasy when Lynx mentioned visiting his home. Upon arrival, Lynx realized Rick lived in a demon lord's castle. At the door, he was surprised by the castle's grand interior. Rick apologized for the trip, and Lynx reassured him it was fine since he hadn't encountered any monsters. Inside, Rionette greeted Lynx, who thanked her for her help. Alysseret rushed down, excited to see Rick, and accidentally fired a lightning spell at Lynx. Rick swatted Lynx away, causing only a hole in the wall. He scolded Alysseret for using magic, and Rionette said she would pay for repairs with her food budget. Alysseret apologized, promising not to use magic inside again, but Rick knew she likely would when bored. Lynx, unsure where to start, greeted Mizette, who introduced him to a powerful weapon named Patricia. Lynx found Broston's room and was surprised to see an orc inside. Broston invited him in, and Lynx admired his extensive book collection. Broston explained he collected books, but had focused on training Rick lately. When Lynx learned that Broston had overseen much of Rick's training, he eagerly asked for lessons, and Broston agreed. After playing with Alysseret, Rick learns from Mizette that Lynx is with Broston in the forest. Meanwhile, Lynx fell off a cliff while weighted down, landing on a boar for dinner. He thanked Rionette, realizing Broston was responsible for the weights. Rionette warned Lynx that Broston's training was causing mishaps, and Lynx was dragged into further training. Later, while having tea, Rick and Rionette discussed his skills. Broston mentioned the 6 jewels needed to defeat Kaiser Alipati, prompting Lynx to check the Central Agency's files for information. A girl mopped the floor at the Adventurers Guild, frustrated about not fighting monsters. She overheard Rick's team requesting a threat level 82 quest and was chosen to join them. As they set out, Alysseret sensed something ahead, and Rick explained they were searching for a magic stone. The new member, Ray, thought Rick was an old loser for being E-rank. When Alysseret spotted a wyvern, Ray panicked. Broston slapped it away, attracting more wyverns, and Rick defeated a red wyvern with a single punch. The next day, the guildmaster praised Rai for surviving and noted that Orichalcum Fist was the strongest S-rank party. Motivated, Ray decided to train but was reminded she still had to mop floors. Meanwhile, Rick's team retrieved a jewel from the wyvern's den, allowing Mizette to locate the next jewel in Heratopia. 400 years ago, King Alexander Heratopia built a coliseum in the desert and became the undefeated champion, amassing 10,000 victories and establishing the kingdom. Broston dreamed of sparring with Alexander, even though he knew it would have devastated the kingdom. In modern Heratopia, being a fighter was highly regarded, but Broston was focused on finding a particular item. His group decided to explore the area, but people fled, fearing Broston's intimidating presence. Realizing this approach wouldn't work, as they prepared to leave, they witnessed a girl being harassed. Rick wanted to intervene, but Broston confronted the harasser instead. A foolish challenge led to a confrontation, and after a loud thud, Broston returned with the guy's limp body. Miraculously, the guy now dubbed Gold survived, and the girl introduced herself as Miltia. Broston showed them a red jewel, asking if they recognized it. Gold had seen something similar but couldn't recall where. Excitement erupted over a parade for the upcoming King of Fists tournament. Gold explained that it attracted over 500,000 spectators, and 5-time champion Kerwin Wolf led the parade, wearing a belt featuring the jewel they sought. After greeting his fans, Kerwin returned to the gym to relax. The owner apologized for the publicity stunts, knowing they were crucial for tournament hype. Kerwin admitted he found the victories boring and longed for a worthy opponent. When Rick and Rionette entered, Kerwin sensed they were different. The owner chastised them for entering uninvited, but Rick clarified they were adventurers searching for a gem. Before Rionette could explain, Broston bluntly stated he wanted Kerwin's belt. The owner assumed they were thieves, but Broston insisted they only wanted the jewel, promising a perfect replica as a replacement. The owner doubted them and called for help, but Kerwin intervened, sensing Broston was truthful. He could not part with the belt. Broston could only get it by becoming the new champion, which he accepted. Broston turned to leave, and Rick asked if he was truly going without the jewel. Broston was fine with it, believing winning the tournament was the priority. They exited, and the owner complained about their rudeness, but Kerwin warned him that acting impulsively could lead to disaster. Outside, Browston suggested they join the tournament to win the belt fairly. To enter, they had to pass preliminaries in the east and west. Browston planned to register at the eastern gate while Rick and Rionette would go through the western gate. Rick and Rionette needed to pass a test similar to the Adventurers Guild exams. Rick faced Angelica, a newly recruited fighter in the arena. Aware of his strength, she felt unlucky to fight him. When Rick used his new skill of leg sweeps, Angelica struggled to keep up. Frustrated, she ultimately gave up, acknowledging Rick's skill. After his victory, Rick expressed his intent to win the tournament, surprising Angelica, who revealed her plans to compete. Meanwhile, Rick arranged for 10 matches daily for the next 4 days to qualify for the preliminaries. The next day, Rick faced his first opponent, Grit, who was rumored to cheat with hidden weapons. Grit revealed an impact stone that enhanced his punches, but injured himself instead. Using his secret art of going easy, Rick intentionally missed a punch, creating airflow to knock Grit out without serious harm, setting the stage for an exciting tournament of fists. Rick and Rionette watched as Angelica won her 40th match, qualifying for the preliminaries. Inspired, Rick aimed to complete 40 games in 4 days. Angelica doubted him, citing the 1 match per day rule and venue distances. Rick insisted he had a match 30 kilometers away. Angelica warned he wouldn't make it, but he ran instead of taking a carriage. As he sped off, Angelica questioned her flash title. Rionette offered to take her to Rick's match and carried her across the rooftops. Angelica arrived too sick to see Rick's match. He admitted he was still learning non-lethal attacks, but rushed to the next venue. Despite her dread, Rionette grabbed her again, and they continued. After 4 days, Rick won all 40 matches, qualifying for the preliminaries. Rionette asked if Angelica planned to win the tournament. She wanted to, but doubted her chances against Rick and Browston. Curious about Rick's whereabouts, Rionette revealed he was on a 600-kilometer jog, which no longer surprised Angelica. When Angelica joked about rumors of them being lovers, Rionette admitted she had feelings for Rick, shocking Angelica. Before she could respond, a man approached, asking them to work part-time. Later, Rick met Snape, the West League chairman, who recognized him as the fastest qualifier and mentioned ties to Angelica's family. Rick realized Snape was a fighter. Snape confirmed he won a tournament 20 years ago and asked Rick to tell Angelica he was looking for her. Militia warned Rick that Snape might be involved with the criminal underworld, surprising him given Snape's family ties. As they talked, Rick overheard men discussing a dark elf, Bunny Girl, and decided to investigate. Outside the West League stadium, Angelica and Rionette volunteered as Bunny Girls. Angelica reluctantly agreed, while Rionette joined for her sake. Despite challenges from drunk men, Angelica fended off one who tried to grab her. When Rick saw Angelica in the outfit, he was shocked. Meanwhile, Kerwin's coach read about Browston finishing his matches in 2 days and noted Rick's 4-day effort, anticipating exciting fights. He recalled discovering Kerwin, the hungry wolf of the slums, after he defeated a gang in a bar, thrilling Kerwin with a chance to fight in Heractopia. The next day, the leagues began, with one fighter advancing each block. Angelica faced Helen in Block A, winning by kicking her into the wall but appearing winded. Rick easily knocked out his opponent while Angelica struggled. Afterward, Angelica was healed at the infirmary, and Rick waited outside, concerned. She was reluctant to talk, but he pointed out her hasty tactics. Angelica revealed that after their parents died, she and her siblings struggled to maintain the Diremute estate, and their grandfather arranged for her to engage with Snape for financial support. Suddenly, they heard a commotion in a bar. The man who defeated Angelica was arguing with a lizard man holding a waitress by the neck. Taylor tried to intervene but got knocked out. Angelica confronted Geith, knowing she couldn't win but refusing to back down. Rick caught Geith's arm, telling him to calm down. Snape arrived, apologizing and explaining that Geith was his younger brother with anger issues. Once Snape left, Angelica revealed he planned to rig matches with his fighter, which was why she entered, to defeat Snape's fighter and cancel the engagement. She knew she couldn't beat Geith now. Rick offered to train her, but she feared his methods might be too intense. Angelica agreed to tough training with Rick, who warned her about the dangers of physical enhancement magic. He strapped over 100 kilograms of weight to her and began a grueling exercise called baby bird running, pulling her to improve her speed. Despite her good acceleration, Rick insisted on pushing her limits for another 6 hours. Exhausted but proud, Angelica survived while Rick reflected on his training struggles. After 5 days, Angelica sat in a bar, justifying her need for a break. Rick found her and shared his training experiences and regret over quitting. Angelica wanted to become the first special grade female knight, not just a noblewoman. Encouraged, Rick planned to teach her how to make her hand as sharp as a blade. After training with Rionette, Angelica appeared exhausted before her next match against a muscular opponent. Unable to use her usual style, she relied on powerful punches, quickly winning the fight. Though she struggled to calm down afterward and barely remembered the match, Rick reassured her that winning and qualifying for the tournament mattered. Alysseret and Mizette arrived at the bar where Rick inquired about a tip leading to a duel, but it turned out to be a false rumor. Mizette tried to flirt with a girl who spun away, already interested in someone else. Gold announced Broston's return, and they sat down to eat. Mizette asked about Broston's activities, and Broston revealed he and Rick were entering the tournament for a duel. Alysseret wanted to join, but Rick worried about potential chaos. Broston called Angelica to confirm her participation in the game as well. She mentioned that training with Rick and Renette nearly killed her. Rick reassured her that surviving proved her talent, but she doubted she could get strong enough to win. Broston and Mizette encouraged her to trust in her hard work. Tournament day arrived with the match pairing set. Rick was relieved not to face Broston soon, while Angelica noted that the brackets favored Geese, allowing him to avoid Broston and Kerwin until the finals. She suspected Snape rigged the matches to build hype around Geese, and planned to bet against him later, wanting to face him early. As the tournament began, Geese faced Herman, who attacked but did no damage. Geese swung back, missed, and accidentally knocked Herman out of the ring, raising questions about his lack of training despite his power. Angelica, Rick, and Broston won their matches, leading to Kerwin's fight where he anticipated his opponent's moves, let himself get hit for drama, and finished with one punch. In the semi-finals, Angelica confronted Geese, reminding him she was his opponent. He dismissed her, claiming hard work was pointless. As their match began, Angelica realized her kicks were ineffective and prepared to utilize her training. Angelica channeled her mana, surprising Snape by cutting Geese, whom he believed was invulnerable due to his armor. Rick urged Snape to recognize Angelica's strength, noting that her technique had been honed through rigorous training under Renette. During one session, Renette demonstrated incredible power by slicing a boulder in half, inspiring Angelica to master the thread slash. Her training paid off as she consistently damaged Geese, despite his overwhelming strength. Geese retaliated by punching the ground, creating a dust cloud that obscured Angelica's vision and attempting to knock her out. She narrowly dodged his attack but remained cautious. Using the dust to his advantage, Geese sneaked behind her and slammed her into a wall, demonstrating his resolve. Angelica attempted her flickering feet technique, but Geese countered with his tail, knocking her away. She tried again, but Geese mirrored her move and overpowered her, slamming her into the wall again. Snape revealed that Geese was his adoptive brother, recounting how he had first met Geese at 8 and had been easily defeated, prompting his retirement from fighting. Despite her hard work, Angelica struggled against Geese's natural combat abilities. He lifted her mockingly, and though she threw a weak punch, Geese, enraged, prepared to kill her. Rick shouted for Geese to stop, but Geese charged Angelica with intent to harm her. Just in time, Rick intervened, knocking Geese's claws away with a well-aimed kick. After the match, Rick confronted Geese backstage. Geese blamed Rick for interrupting his moment of triumph and vowed revenge. Rick remained silent, knowing that retaliating would be unjust, and instead promised to humiliate Geese in their upcoming tournament fight. He checked on Angelica, who was recovering, but required extended treatment. Although relieved she was safe, he felt sorry for her setbacks after her hard training. Meanwhile, Broston and Kerwin secured victories, setting up the semi-finals. The next day, Rick found Angelica looking better and reminded her not to overexert herself. She apologized for not meeting his expectations and felt like a failure. When Rick faced Geese, he was taken aback when Geese expressed concern for Angelica, only to reveal he felt pity for her. Rick charges at Geese and lands a solid hit that brings Geese to his knees. Geese quickly recovered and attacked recklessly, but Rick evaded him and delivered a palm strike that knocked the wind out of Geese. While Angelica marveled at Rick's strength, Renette explained that Rick's body control technique allowed him to bypass armor. Geese activated his Dragonite strength magic, boosting his power but draining his energy. As he tired, Rick exploited this. Despite Geese's prodigious talent, Rick asserted that true strength came from dedication and hard work. After a fierce battle, Rick told Geese he needed to set aside his ego to become stronger. In a decisive move, Rick used the thread slash technique to slice through Geese's chest, securing his victory and demonstrating the power of training and determination. Once Rick was declared the winner, the crowd erupted in cheers. Angelica expressed her gratitude and vowed to train hard to reach his level, motivating Rick. She glanced at Snape, expecting him to be upset about Geese's loss, but he remained calm, finding satisfaction in Geese's defeat despite not winning any bets. Angelica teased him about his marriage contract, but Snape surprised her by admitting he genuinely liked her. The next match pitted Broston against Kerwin, who eagerly entered the arena. He quickly realized Broston was firm and found no openings in his defenses. As the fight began, Kerwin launched a series of attacks and evaded Broston's counters. Chaos erupted when Geese rampaged in his draconic form, endangering the audience. Kerwin angrily confronted Geese and knocked him out with a single punch when attacked. Impressed, Rick and others recognized Kerwin's strength as rivaling a top A-rank adventurer, suggesting he was at least S-rank. With the match against Browston postponed until the next day to address injuries and lawsuits, Kerwin doubted his eagerness. Rick reached the border and found Kerwin training alone. They engaged in a spar, with Kerwin showcasing his foresight abilities. Kerwin admitted he hadn't been fighting at full strength, having grown bored with quick victories. Rick encouraged him to unleash his full power against Browston the next day before running off, leaving Kerwin puzzled. A magic barrier was erected for safety as Browston and Kerwin's match began the next day. Kerwin started strong, throwing punches that Browston blocked effortlessly. He delivered a special rolling punch that broke through Browston's guard, shocking Rick. However, when Browston retaliated, Kerwin retreated, admitting Browston was strong. He confessed he hid his true power to keep things interesting, wanting to face Browston at full strength but fearing exposure. Browston respected this and fought using only 2 fingers while staying rooted. Kerwin attacked but was surprised when Browston easily tossed him onto his back. The gym owner suddenly shouted at Kerwin to stop pretending to be weaker. Kerwin explained he was doing it for the owner's business, but the owner insisted he should fight genuinely. Realizing the owner's support, Kerwin apologized to Browston for holding back. He charged and threw a punch that created a shockwave, forcing Browston to block with 5 fingers. Kerwin cast a Hellflame wave, surprising everyone since beastmen usually struggled with magic. However, Browston easily extinguished the flames by kicking a rock. Kerwin used the Blink Step to bind Browston with a 7th nature spell and cast an 8th nature meteor spell. Browston praised Kerwin's strength as the meteor fell and destroyed it effortlessly. Browston countered, sending him flying. Despite feeling defeated, Kerwin rose and channeled every ounce of strength into one final punch, surprisingly pushing Browston back. Defeated yet proud, he expressed no regrets as Browston knocked him unconscious, leaving him with a smile. After Browston's victory, he headed backstage to celebrate with Rick and Angelica. With Browston reaching the finals, their party secured the jewel, but Rick feared facing Browston's fists and considered withdrawing. Browston insisted he couldn't back out. As Browston left, Rick's anxiety manifested in hair loss. Meanwhile, Kerwin reflected on a newspaper article criticizing him for holding back as champion. Feeling he had lost his role model status, he was surprised to see kids still idolizing him. The owner reassured him that public opinion didn't matter, and praised Kerwin's powerful yet improvised attack against Browston despite his loss. Browston entered, interrupting their moment, and checked on Kerwin. In response to Browston's offer to heal him, Kerwin embraced the pain, relishing the challenge ahead with Browston and Rick. Elsewhere, Snake found Rick holed up in his room, with Angelica trying to coax him out. Snake urged him to think about the fans and the tournament. Still, Rick prioritized his safety. Angelica's comments about dying and being revived fell flat, leading her to express disappointment in Rick. Mazette reminisced about Browston's training plan for Rick, which was meant to prepare him to match Browston's strength. He explained the brutal nature of orc culture and Browston's desire for a true challenge. Later that evening, Rionette visited Rick and questioned whether he thought he was pathetic for avoiding the fight. She reassured him that she would admire him more if he faced Browston, regardless of the outcome. The next day, excitement filled the tournament crowd as the announcer listed prizes for the match, including money, precious stones, and hot spring tickets. Rionette and Angelica checked on Rick, who claimed he was fine. Still, his terrified expression said otherwise. Rionette promised him a personal reward if he performed well against Browston, motivating him to face his fears. As the match began, Rick charged at Browston incredibly quickly, inflicting a wound that impressed Browston but confused Snake. Rick used Thread Slash to cut Browston, then continued attacking until forced to retreat. He jumped off the arena walls for a heel kick, but Browston blocked it and countered with a punch. Rick ducked under and used another Thread Slash, cutting into Browston's stomach. Rionette, having trained with Rick, recognized the effort needed to reach their strength levels. When Angelica asked Rionette what had changed, she revealed she had promised Rick a couple's hot spring trip if he won. Browston unleashed his strength as the fight intensified, and Rick's fear reignited. He dodged punches and activated his air cushion spell to redirect Browston's hit. Rick's instant spell casting impressed Browston, who praised Rick for his growth and mental fortitude. Recognizing Browston's desire for an equal challenge, Rick vowed to fight with the utmost respect, allowing Browston to experience the battle he had always sought. Browston smiled, feeling fortunate to have met Rick, and decided to share the history of Orichalcum Fist. 46 years ago, 5-year-old Broston realized he was different from other orcs, stronger and smarter. In trying to connect, he taught them skills that advanced their civilization, elevating him to godlike status and further isolating him. One stormy day, he returned to find his pack dead from an accident, leaving him truly alone. After killing a wyvern, Broston was attacked by a man who sought to exterminate orcs. However, impressed by Broston's calmness and agility, the man apologized, intrigued by Broston's story of loneliness and his longing for a worthy fight. The man, an author of legends, shared his dream of defeating the formidable Kaiser Alsapieta, prompting Broston to join him in forming the Orichalcum Fist Party. Broston devised an intense regimen as they trained, but his companion Mazette warned that no one could survive it. With a rival before him, he felt content. During a spar with Rick, who mostly used magic, Rick offered a quarter thumbs up, a sign of commitment to a true fist fight. Their battle intensified, risking chaos as the arena began to shatter. Despite suffering damage, Rick charged back for more, but Broston's strength proved overwhelming, leaving Rick struggling to continue. Angelica doubted Rick could continue after his injury, but others reassured her of his resilience. For Broston, it was just a fist fight, while Rick, wanting to express gratitude, activated his hidden skill, shocking Broston, who had kept Rick's training a secret. Now equal to Broston, Rick charged and delivered a powerful punch, holding his ground as they traded blows. As fatigue set in, both prepared for one final headbutt. The aftermath was visible for miles. When the dust settled, they stood bloodied, but unbowed. Rick praised Broston, but Broston insisted Rick was the true victor for honoring his dream of an equal fight, collapsing from exhaustion shortly after. Rick awoke in the hospital with the champion's belt. Broston insisted Rick keep the belt, declaring him the true victor. Rick planned to hire a carriage the following day, but he was surprised by Angelica's determination to catch up with him. Before leaving, he flustered at the idea of a hot spring trip, leading Mazette to propose a race for the date.